And first item would be approval of the meeting minutes from March 25th.
So moved.
I'll second.
You can have it. Approval of meeting minutes, motion made by Commissioner Olson, second by Commissioner Vagley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, meeting minutes approved. Chairperson's report. Nothing actually to report. Thank you, Dr. Adine, for attending. You got any, I always love you used to give us tips of the day. Put you on the spot. You got any tip of the day? I thought it was interesting.
Well water testing.
Yeah, well, that's right. But remember, private well. I thought it was interesting, your take on, at a national level, I've heard little clips today, are red dyes leaving some of our food? Yeah,
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. That if doing the things.
let's see. Dr. Dean, for the public to hear you, I have to ask you to come to the podium. And I apologize putting you on the spot, but I know you can handle that. You showed up, I got to ask you a question. Thank you for
We want more
coming.
people to hear this wisdom.
Well, yeah, there's certainly data out there about the various dyes and that we've been using.
Yep.
And a lot of them have been used for a long time without, I think, an awful lot of testing.
Yeah.
There's been more testing done. And to the degree that they're cancer causing or not, I think that perhaps just sort of, it sounds like a good idea to clean up our food and do a better job with our food. I doubt that it's going to change all of the chronic illnesses that we see. And this is this one panacea that takes care of every possible thing. And I think that's being a little oversold. But
Yep. I do have to, on a personal note though, I know one of my daughter's small children and she gets multivitamins.
Yeah.
And she actually gets them from Canada because there's much more natural ingredients in them than if you compared it to, a product here in the United States.
Yeah.
And she's feeling better that she's buying a more natural multivitamin and stuff. So just a little personal.
They're banned in just about every other country.
Yeah, but we got to make our food look pretty. Have you ever followed the art of food photography? I mean, my husband always used to say, I want a hamburger that looks exactly like the one in the ad. It does not, when you go into the store, it does not look like the one in the ad on the TV. Anyway, other than that, I don't know. Emily, I keep hearing about little measles outbreaks across the nation. Are we good in that category? It's one that hits the news, so I'll ask.
We would just really encourage everyone to get their measles vaccination to prevent risk for those who cannot.
Yeah,
So,
but
no,
we haven't had any.
No, we
Oh.
don't have any currently.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. Then moving on to, or does anybody have anything? Okay. Item 4.1, approved contract for the Alliance for Abuse Prevention for Cannabis and Substance Use Prevention Work. That was on page 57.
Yes, so you've heard this budget item previously with our cannabis and substance use prevention grant dollars. We were awarded $109,000 to do cannabis prevention and education work for this year. And in the initial budget that was approved on March 11th was $61,000 to contract with the Winona County Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention to do education and prevention work for us. And this is the contract for that work that we're seeking approval for.
I'll move to approve item 4.1.
I'll second. We have a motion made to approve 4.1 by Commissioner Vagley, seconded by Commissioner Meyer. I think it's a real oxymoron. Here we are providing something to our public, and now we got to talk about the abuse and the,
Later on, we're
Prevention.
going to approve it and now we're trying to prevent it.
yeah. Dr. Dean,
I didn't partake of any of that stuff back in the 60s.
oh, come on now.
No,
Very
I
good liar
didn't.
either.
I was an Eagle Scout, I was a Boy Scout, I was a straight arrow. And if you did that then and you were going to be a physician, why, it wasn't a good thing for the board that approved you. So
Sure.
that never happened to me. My comment is that the stuff that's being sold now is 7 to 10 times more potent than what we was seeing back Woodstock, wherever, way back when. And I just, I find it ironic that we are approving something that is so much, the people that are approving it are a bunch of old folks that think, oh boy, the good old days. But I think that we're approving something that's a great deal more problematic than they think. My own experience is not great in that area in terms of patients. I have been impressed with the number of people that I see that have mental illnesses that are using cannabis in ever increasing doses. Now, I quit practicing, at least getting paid to practice 3 years ago. And I don't know that it's worse or better than it was then, but I definitely, when we were dealing at the clinic with people that had been placed on too many narcotics, and we were seeing all the issues with that. We were also seeing people that had mental illness problems and were using cannabis. And boy, it doesn't help them one bit. Schizophrenics, particularly with the really potent stuff that we have now, it can make their schizophrenia become very violent. And I know the Minnesota Medical Association was very, very much against all the liberalization and the wonderful things that we did. But
Yep. And as society now, we will deal with that. Okay, so we have a,
So naturally.
we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, motion carried. 5.1, approved contract with Seal Strategic, what?
That's right.
Seal?
Yep.
Strategic Innovations to provide organizational evaluation to Health and Human Service Department. Okay,
So we are looking at our foundational public health responsibilities grant dollars. For 2024, we were awarded just over $204,000 of these grant dollars, of which we've spent approximately $27,000. These funds need to be expended by the end of June of this year, or they will be redistributed to other counties that have already spent all of their dollars to spend more dollars. So that leaves us about $177,000 in our grant that must be spent by June of this year. And then just for context, you did also approve our budget for the 2025 dollars, which was an additional $200,000 that will be focused on the same priorities.
yes.
Do you think you'll get it all spent by the end of June?
I'm trying my darndest. If you say yes to this, it will certainly help me spend it.
I heard from Ben Klinger, our emergency management coordinator, earlier today that the BRIC grant for our emergency preparedness had been canceled by the federal government. Can we use any of this for emergency, like to backfill?
We could potentially, if we get approval from the state is very hesitant to use these dollars versus some of the public health emergency preparedness dollars for those purposes. So I would probably look at a different grant to backfill that. The dollars that we're using currently are 2023 dollars that have not been pulled back. But if they go back in time to 2023, then potentially we could be short dollars to complete that work.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I have quite a bit of professional skepticism about these kind of contracts with quote consultants. So what do you, and I know Ms. Holte did provide, and I was trying to get in touch with the Houston County Commissioner to see what they felt. And I think it was also shared Wabasha is using the same. What do we really think we're going to get out of this consultant from California?
Well, Precious is with us today, so she would be happy to speak to that once I kind of get through our information. So I gave you a little bit of a synopsis of where we are fiscally with our grant dollars.
Right.
Just to review what the foundational public health responsibilities duties are, these dollars must be used to be focused on the ability to grow capacity within our existing programs in order to meet these foundational public health duties. This includes things like increasing capacity within our public health department, doing assessments, surveillance, planning, evaluation, policy review and development, growing community partnerships, working through leadership and government strategies, workforce development, and financial and contract management, all of which should support then the guidance of our public health work within our jurisdiction. So the evaluation and the support that we are proposing to contract with SEAL Strategic Innovations would focus on doing a health and human services organizational evaluation, making recommendations, and then follow-up strategic planning around those recommendations. We would be looking at organizational structure, identifying where resources may be either over or under allocated, looking at gaps that exist to meeting community needs, looking at how we might improve utilization of funding sources to meet those areas that might have gaps associated with them, and then the strategic planning to support making those strategic interventions to address those needs, along with 12 months of follow-up support from the consulting agency. You are correct that SEAL is working both with Wabasha and Houston counties currently. They've also worked with the city of Bloomington here in Minnesota. Those have been the three areas serving public health in the state of Minnesota that SEAL has previously worked with or is currently working with. And certainly if you have questions specifically about the organization or the background, Precious would be happy to answer any questions, but if you have more general questions, I'd be happy to take those.
She's got about $8,000 worth of travel here. So I mean, I guess, I know you got to travel, but do I have to spend $8,000 of Minnesota money to get you back and forth here to create a plan? And I, you know, I can figure out some of this. Yeah, we need more people, but to hire people is difficult with the right skill set and the knowledge and everything, and just the job requirements and then the pay and everything. So I guess, like I say, I have a lot of professional skepticism of doing these.
We have vetted several agencies. SEAL Strategic Innovations seems to align most with the Foundational Public Health Responsibilities duties with their training and experience, which is where we landed here. And speaking with both Houston and Wabasha counties about their experiences have been they've been very positive in the work that they've done thus far, which spoke to our interest in engaging with them.
Vaguely.
Process question. So it's on the, it appears twice on our different agendas, right? So this is health board, and then it also appears in 9.1. So
Right.
I'm not saying that we should stop the conversation, but we can also continue the conversation later on, right?
We can.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understand that it's twice. So I don't want us to rush and make a decision in 6 minutes.
And if you do have specific questions for Precious, she will be here until 6 o'clock because she's working in Wabasha County tomorrow morning. So if there are specific things that you'd like to inquire of her, now may be the best time to do so.
Well, maybe she can tell me, what are you gonna do for us? What, give me something concrete other than hire 5 more people to do the job in Winona County for public health,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
I can't afford.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me here. As Emily was saying, I'm here for the next 2 days. And so this kind of aligned with my travels and doing the strategic planning, which is part 2 of the scope of work for for the proposal that I proposed. This is strategic planning and really identifying strategic direction. My background is in public health from California. And so what I will be doing is really doing strategic workforce assessment, just trying to see where the resources are currently, and then how do we then, not just hire people, but really look at process and systems that are embedded in the public health department. A lot of times people will say, I'm at capacity, but what does capacity look like? It doesn't mean you need to hire 4 or 5 more people. Maybe it's already embedded in your structure, and we need to look at that structure and look at some of your process and systems and maybe enhance it or redefine it. And so my job as a consultant is really do a really deep dive of that department and say, here are some of the recommendations that I'd like to make. And also, it's not a one size fits all. So Wabasha County, Houston County, the city of Bloomington are all different, and they function different, and they have different demographics. And so what is your community needs, and how do I, as a consultant, help you implement those and really bring sustainability around your infrastructure? Things will change, right? Funding will come and go, but is your department going to be standing through those challenges? And what are the tools that you need as a department or as an organization to withstand all of these challenges that might be coming? And so really that's what I do. I take a deep dive, I do a strategic assessment, and then figure out what is the strategic direction of this department? And then how do we then identify deliverables and goals for each of the people that are working within this department? So that way, everyone is on the same playing platform. So that is kind of what my consulting process is. I do travel here 2 or 3 times. Part of my consulting services is I do continue to work with the organization for a year. And I do a 3-month, a 6-month, and a 9-month and a year follow-up just to see how things are going. And if things aren't going well, my team and I provide the technical support. So again, sustainability is really key for CL. I have had experiences within my own professional, just being in public health, knowing that consultants come and then they don't show up again. That is not my forte. My forte is I want to follow you through this experience and also figure out where can I, as a consultant, help you within the year, So that's where the funding is coming from. And you're right, I am from California and I do travel. And it is expensive to travel to Minnesota and, it does provide my accommodation, but I do provide really good services and you can speak to people in Houston County, City of Bloomington, and of course, Wabasha.
Not
Yeah.
necessarily a question for yourself. but
Sure.
We have it tagged as to provide organizational evaluation to Health and Human Service Department. So is this just going to be a look at the health, or is it the Health and Human Service? And then we have a new person in a leadership role. Have they bought into all of this? Again, I don't know, a lot of moving pieces.
So the funding through Foundational Public Health dollars has been approved for the entirety of the Health and Human Services Department. So it would be the entire department, not just public health. So, which is
That's
contains
a
a,
monumental task. I think
Yes, it
Precious
is.
needs to go speak to the governor and the Commissioner of Health and Human Services, because that's where the problem lies. What we can do on a local level is pretty limiting, because, and the funding is getting shifted, canceled, changed.
and largely this is about looking at where our community's needs are, figuring out if we're meeting them, and if not, how can we use the resources we have strategically to meet those needs? It may or may not, require more human beings. It might be contracted work, and that's, I don't want us to paint ourselves into any box when it comes to that. And we might find that we have an adequate amount of resources, they're just in the wrong places.
As I read this, and I tried to compare it to the report that had come from Houston County,
Yes.
which was really just about their workforce
I'm
and,
not hearing.
sorry,
Can't hear you.
I tried to compare this to the report that we had from Houston County. It looked like that was really not the same focus, that focus was more on just the workforce.
And they did do a workforce evaluation focused specifically on public health, so much smaller scope.
Yeah. So some of the things that I liked in here is that the scope of what you're talking about, first of all, talks about the cost and capacity study that was done by the state and our responses to that. Also looks at the community health assessment and then the community health improvement plan that came out of that. And so it really did look to me like it is going to build upon the sort of research that we have done as a community to try and figure out what the gaps are and then
Yes.
build upon that.
Yes, we don't want to start from square one. We don't want to recreate the wheel. We want to build on what we have, and then really get into the actionables about how can we maybe create structural change that will better meet the needs of our community members.
And I also liked it that there's a focus also on the funding. And I know that Administrator Holte has done a lot for us in terms of understanding better ways to recoup the reimbursements that we're supposed to be getting from the state for the work that we do. And so I appreciate that that is also a component that you're going to be looking at. So it seems pretty prudent to me, given the current environment, that this has the potential to help us do what we do better and be more mindful about it. So I'm going to move to approve item 5.1.
Second.
We have
Process question, it's 6:01, do we need to approve it now before, or can it just be approved at the regular?
Well, is it under was it under?
The general.
I don't mean to squash, I just.
Item says approve
Yeah,
contract.
it is not 9-1 in
Usually
which we
contracts
do
are
have,
approved at the Community Health Board, and then it's on the regular board for final approval as county board.
We have to do it twice.
Yes.
yeah. So we have a motion made by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the contract with Seal. Further discussion? Dr. Adine?
Well,
Yeah.
about your question. My understanding, what happened in Texas may have started in the Mennonite community, and then it spread to the people who
Oh,
was
the
worried
measles?
about autism in their kids, and
Yep.
so we aren't going to get the MMR vaccine and so on. I look upon it as what's the past history? I was a history major, so look, what's our past history of doing things, and how is that going to inform us? And I think I can think of a few probably underserved communities. I don't know how well we're serving the Amish community and bringing all their immunizations up to date. I know I got very deeply involved when they had the meningitis outbreak there. I don't know if you are all familiar with that, but that was the scariest weekend for a long time when that was happening. And we had a death out there. So I think that I don't know to what degree our public health nurses are penetrating into the Amish community with immunizations and MMR particularly. I don't know. I know there's some Afghan people that have come to this community. I don't have any idea where they're getting their medical care and if people are really looking at all their immunizations. Certainly there's people from a lot of places, the immigrants that have come into this country. And I think that's just an easy way to slip and slide through something and not doing it. So I think that measles is a sentinel event in Texas, and we shouldn't think it isn't going to happen here just because we're so Minnesota nice and we are so good in public health and we do everything wonderfully. So I think that's something that we should be looking at, what our penetration is into those communities.
Okay.
And not just say,
Thank you.
haven't seen anything.
Yeah, good. You bring up some very valid points why we need a separate public health advisory committee. Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? I'm going to give you like I say, I'm very pessimistic about your kind of business and what you're going to bring for us. So knowing that, I hope you, do bring some very concrete things with the current condition of the state and the federal funding mechanisms. I think that's critical.
That's my hope, is that it brings validity to what we're doing and that we streamline the process and don't just look for new job positions to fill voids, that we figure out how to manage what we're doing even better. And that's my hope out of this after reading everything, is that we just become better with what we're doing.
All right. I guess we adjourn the Public Health Board. Okay, we will call to order the Winona County Board. Please join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening.
Good evening.
Beautiful, beautiful day in southeast Minnesota and Winona County. We always start our meetings with a public comment period, so anybody can address the Winona County Board. They have a 2-minute slot. And as you join us at the podium, we need your name and address, and we'll start with that. Good morning, or good evening. No, it's not morning, it's evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is David Bear, 45 South Benson Drive, Lewiston, Minnesota. And I'm here today not only as a farmer from Lewiston, but as a member of the Lewiston-Altura School Board. As you might or might not know, there was a huge problem with property taxes this year. 2,600 ag property parcels were calculated incorrectly in the Lewiston-Altura School District because of the changes from our bond referendum passing. The 70% ag exemption was not calculated on there. This morning, I'm on the finance committee. We had a call with Chelsea Wilbright, and she told us what happened and explained the fix that's going to happen to correct this problem. What I would like to ask the board is that you put measures in place that this doesn't happen again. 2,600 parcels. And we had people that had their property tax bill go up 104%. It is not fun to open up that property tax bill and see that. So we know that you had new software and things like that, but we would really like you guys to put measures in place that prevent this from happening again, because if there's a new bond referendum or operating levy that gets passed anywhere in the county, you can catch the problem before it happens.
Well, unfortunately, you know more about it than I do. I know there's a problem, but we haven't had any follow-up from staff. So I think we definitely will be reviewing what happened.
Yeah,
what
and
happened.
so the problem is being resolved. And I just wanted to come down here as a representative of the school board to talk to the county board of commissioners. And if there's anybody here from Lewiston that was also going to talk, I'd be happy to speak with you in the hallway and explain what happened and talk about the way forward.
All right, thank you very much.
Definitely received my share of panicked phone calls that
Yeah.
we had to put the fires out.
It was unfortunate, very unfortunate.
And thank you for your service on the school board.
Is everyone getting a notice? The 260 parcels?
We're working on it.
Okay, all right. Is there anyone else wishing to address the Winona County Board? Is there anyone else wishing to address the county board?
I would like to, if you can, I don't know if you can't raise your hand on Zoom, but Corey Johnson from Crescent, Minnesota, assuming you can hear me.
Yes, yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just want to raise the issue of some of the public record requests I put in to Winona County regarding some of the election data. I put several in over many years, but I think the two good examples I can give is I put request in on August 30th, 2023 to get some of the cast vote records for the August 8th election. That request was unfulfilled until April 12th of this year. So well over a year and some months before I got a reply back. And that reply came back with, we don't have that data. I'm not sure how they don't have that data, because you can't run the elections without having the election management systems with that data. So I'm not sure if that was just a misunderstanding of generating the report I wanted. I did re-request that, but I haven't heard back. My other concern is after the May election, special election in May of 2023, I put a request in for the detailed voting information from that election. If you remember, that election was actually a tie for the second and third place. And I actually spent the time to obtain the official Secretary of State's data and run the numbers. And there was a delta of two votes in that. So the posted data from Winona County and the voting history audit log from the Secretary of State showed two more people had voted in that election than was officially posted. Now, that could be explained by over and under votes. However, that data is not posted anywhere. That is part of the data audit log for what would be the cast vote records, and you can provide those images for the fill-in of those fields. That request that I have is still unfulfilled. So that's going on almost 2 years here. So my ask to the board is, I don't feel that's acceptable that it's taking this long to get such public data records. And actually, these are public data records. So maybe the board can stress that election data can be posted online automatically without having to go through this cycle to even request it. That's it, unless you have any questions.
Not at this time. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thanks.
Okay. Last time, is there anyone else wishing to address the Winona County Board? And if you're online, we don't have that little screen anymore. I don't think there is anybody else. Does anybody see anything? Okay, all right. Thank you for those comments. We'll move on into our agenda. Item 5, approval of the county board meeting minutes. We have 5.1 county board April 8th, 2025, and 5.2 the closed session of April 8th, 2025.
I'll second that.
We have a motion made by Commissioner Elsing, seconded by Commissioner Vagley to approve those meeting minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, carried. All right, item 6, acknowledge receipt of approved committee meeting minutes from 6.1 is the Parks and Environment Advisory Committee.
I'll move.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Vagley, second by Commissioner Olson to acknowledge the receipt of the approved committee meeting minutes from the Park and Environment Advisory. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Consent comments and approval of the agenda. Commissioner Vagley.
I would like to pull item 8.9. It doesn't need to be, I think we have people coming to visit, so it can be later on in the agenda. 8.9
8.9.
regarding the Apple Blossom Park. We can discuss that even at the end of the meeting.
Okay, make it 9.7.
Sure.
Okay, 8.9 now becomes 9.7.
And then two quick comments at the end. Thank you.
2 comments. Commissioner Elsing.
I'd like to pull 8.7 for some clarity and comment at the end, please.
8.7, do you want to make that like 9.8? Approved budgeted differing costs. Do you have just a comment or do you want more discussion?
Yeah, I believe that was it
Discussion?
when I printed it off here. Want to make sure I got the right one. No, never mind. Don't leave that one go. Sorry, just a comment at the end. Sorry.
Okay, all
Yeah.
right, all right, we got that answered. Commissioner
Yep.
Olson,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Meyer,
Nothing.
Ms. Holte?
Nothing.
Okay, all right. I do have a comment and board action.
Comment,
Right.
yeah. Before that, this is one.
Okay, all right. Okay, with that, we have an amended agenda.
I'll move to approve the, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a motion to?
I'll move to approve the amended
second it.
agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Vagley, second by Commissioner Elsing to approve the amended agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. Ms. Holte, would you read the consent items, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
8.1, approve 2025 strategic plan. 8.2, approve recommendation for Integrity Employee Benefits LLC to complete request for proposals. 8.3, approve renewal of purchase of service and business associate agreements with Family and Children's Center for supervised visitation services. 8.4, approve contract with Alliance for Abuse Prevention for cannabis and substance use prevention work. 8.5, approve agreement 1055747 and resolution for state local bridge replacement program grant for CASA 25 bridge. 8.6, award bid for annual supply of gasoline and diesel fuel for Consolidated Energy Company. 8.7, approve purchase of budgeted equipment of differing costs. 8.8, approve contract with Caitlin Lang for well decommissioning. 8.9 was pulled. 8.10, approve resolution for donations received January 1, 2025 through March 31st, 2025. 8.11, acknowledge receipt of monthly finance and budget update for March 2025. And 8.12, confirm payment of disbursements.
I'll move to approve the consent business as it was read.
Motion made by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Olson to approve the consent business as read. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. All right, moving into general business, 9.1, approved contract with SEAL Strategic Innovations to provide organizational evaluation to Health and Human Services Department. And we did have quite a discussion at the Public Health.
I'll move to approve this item.
I'll second that to get it up on the table for discussion.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Vagley to approve the contract. Commissioner Vagley, do you have?
No,
Did
just
you
want to
have-
get it on the table for discussion.
Okay. Does anybody have any discussion? Well, I do. Like I said, in the public health part, I do have some reservations about hiring consultants to do these kind of projects. not knowing what we're going to get. With all the angst in our federal and our state government, I hear grants are getting cut, funding is getting cut, shifts and everything. So again, what's the platform? What platform are we working off of? Are we getting grants and funding, or are we going to be doing this, with very limited dollars? Are our priorities going to be changed from this year to next year? Well, I think all of the above is very practical. So I just really have some angst about somebody from California coming to tell me how to do my public health business. Now, I know they're doing some things in our neighbors, but I haven't had a chance to touch base with the neighbors to see if they're really happy with the money they spent. Commissioner Elsing.
But the way I read this is we have an allotment of money that needs to be spent by June, correct? So we're using some of this to try to deter something or to figure something out. I get that it'll go back. Obviously, it's not going to go into the general fund. Obviously, they're not going to give it back to us or put it towards our deficit or tax us some more at the state level. So it is what it is. The question I have is, and this is the caution that we have, is that oftentimes, and this is nothing against Precious is gone, I guess. It's nothing against anybody, but it's the caution we have that I believe Commissioner Ward is talking about, is that oftentimes, having dealt with many consultants, paid consultants and other companies I've worked for, obscene amounts of money, six-figure type money, is that they have to do something. Something has to be generated, because if not, they don't have any value. And least what we tend to see in the situation, and I'm just being very open, is that if they can't find, I'm going to say, for the lack of better terms, fault within the system or efficiency within the system, it leads to, I have to have an outcome. Because if they walk away and say everything's rosy, guess what? They weren't worth their money. So what it defaults to is generating more people. That's my fear, because I walked down this 20-some years being in business and sat on some pretty big boards before, that at end result, the answer becomes that, because they can't find anything else to generate. And so they have to be of their value when they go to the next people and say, call Winona County, because that's the game. And I get that, and I understand that. So my biggest fear is that the outcome becomes something that we now create a new burden, because this strategic person comes in and has to have some sort of positive generation of facts of finding, and that's what it oftentimes defaults to. This is why I get skeptical, because I've been down this road enough times in business to see this happen. And so it can fall into a multitude of different classes as to why that is. So my fear is that this is going to default to that scenario, to say, hey, to better provide people or better provide services, this is the answer, and it's more people, it's more programs, it's more this, it's more that, rather than really looking inside and saying, how can we be more efficient with what we already have? And so that's my genuine fear. And I would say this about any department, anytime you hire anybody, been there, done it, and seen it how many times. So that is my skepticism to hiring somebody in this fashion.
Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor of approving the contract, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Did you vote in
What's
favor of
that?
it? Did you even vote? in favor of it?
I'm reluctantly voting in favor.
Okay, all right. Well, we expect results.
I'm hoping that the results, that there's a positive look at efficiency.
Well, I think there are so many things happening right now that I don't know that, what we'll get. We'll see. I'm not optimistic, but anyway. Moving on, 9.2, receive board report from MCIT. Good evening. No, I'm not giving the report.
Greetings. It's great having a board member here to present to, but we'll get to
Jim.
it. Yeah, I'm Jim Carrolls. I'm from MCIT for your insurance group. And I'll notice I didn't say insurance carrier. I have a handout. Do I need to hand it out, or do you follow along? This is-
Hand it out.
Okay, sounds good.
Please. Or just, we'll pass them down. Just, we're good at sharing.
Sometimes.
They'll come around, Jim. Don't worry about it. It was provided. We did see a preview in our board packet also. So.
Perfect. Okay. Again, I'm Jim Carrolls. I'm a risk management consultant from MCIT. I have a cohort and we split the counties that are in MCIT. Just so you know, we have, MCIT provides insurance to 81 of the 87 Minnesota counties. And so I have approximately 40 or 41 of them, and Winona County is one of, that's my purview. So that's why I'm here today. In my time allotted, I'm just going to kind of briefly talk about MCIT, talk about the year ahead. I am going to go through this handout, not verbatim. I'm just going to touch on each section and highlight something from it. So, again, the front page, left-hand side gives you a little background on MCIT. Again, you know, most walk-a-day world, we call ourselves your insurance company. We're really your insurance pool, and there's a big difference there. We are formed in 1979 from the counties for the counties. So the only folks that we provide insurance to are counties or county affiliated. So we do provide insurance to your ag society, to your historical society, things of that nature, some SWCDs. But predominantly it's the 81 counties that we mainly work with. And we provide all the main lines of insurance in the portfolio. But the great part about being formed from you, for you, is we're aligned with you, we're aligned with your needs. As you'll see, all the costs, we're not for profit. So all the premiums or contributions we take in, minus everything we pay out on claims for the county's behalf and the services we provide, and then our admin expenses, whatever's left over, we give back. So, you know, we're unique in that fashion where I don't operate on commission. We're not beholden to stockholders. We're just basically set up for you, here for you. So it's important to reminder. So we're a lot different than any other commercial insurance carrier from that aspect. So if you take a look then on the right, again, it talks about how commissioners can make a difference. And it's fun because I also have Lac La Parle, and I was down visiting them, and Todd is on the board. So my slant is a little different here. I usually talk about how we operate, and we are overseen by a board. And on our board are commissioners made up from around the county. And of course, Marsha Ward's on that board. We're fortunate to have her on our board. So she is part of our board that oversees MCIT. But what this really delves into is just a reminder that, you know, I have a primary contact here at Winona. Maureen is one of them. And so just a reminder that to stay abreast of especially claims activities, large claims that are going on in your county, maybe if there's some MCIT initiatives that commissioners can get behind, we'd really appreciate it. But, you know, the last part talks about how staff and members do their part. It's interacting with your staff, building a relationship with your staff to see what are your needs, how can we help you insure them, how can we help you cover them. If you're unfortunate enough to have a claim, how can we work through that claim for you? That's our main goals, you know. So if you look at the next page, now is when we get into some of the unfortunate information. Our costs are rising. And I can cut to the chase on all lines of insurance as to why the costs are rising, and it's inflation. Insurance is not immune from the effects of inflation. As a matter of fact, it's deeply impacted by inflation. So we can talk about why or how we're touched by inflation. The upper left-hand corner talks about how we have what's called reinsurance. So MCIT, let's say you have a claim, let's say it's a large claim. Well, MCIT, we cover the first 850,000 of that claim. And then above that, we have reinsurance that sits on top of us. So that reinsurance comes from a global market, and that global market is being rocked, and their premiums are triple, in our case, double. And so that affects our rates. So just as a side note, what we did in 2025 is we essentially did up our deductible. So we're going from 850,000 to $1 million. So we're going to cover the first $1 million of a claim. And that was in order to bring some of those reinsurance rates down with the hope that, we don't impact going to that above 850,000 enough to that 1 million where it offsets where we found the cost savings to bring the reinsurance rates down. We're confident we can do that, but it's going to take work from all of us. So that was a cost driver. The main cost drivers, though, we'll get into. If you take a look at the bottom of this page, it talks about property insurance. So property values, it gives you a glimpse of from 2021 in the pool, the 81 counties consisted of $6.6 billion worth of property. So in 2021, we insured $6.6 billion worth of property. And in 2025, that's now $9.2 billion. That's almost a 40% increase. And while some of that is from new construction, some counties have built a $10 million jail or a $5 million bill. So there's parts and parcels of that, but the bulk of it is inflation. I'm sure if you've seen in your personal property how it's gone up in value, which is a good thing in a way. It's better than the alternative. But the problem with us is we have to insure it. So as those values rise, we have to insure those values that rise, and in a sense, it costs more. So that's a big cost driver. If you take a look at the next page, you'll see 2025, the property and liability rates and your workers' compensation rates. Again, when I say it was impacted by inflation, what exactly does that mean? So if you take a look at, again, the property, let's say there's a big building loss. Well, those building materials have gone up due to inflation. The labor to put that building back together or to construct it again has gone up. And those are the inflation drivers, essentially. And then with work comp is based on your employee losses, your employee injuries, but also with your the county payroll. And so combined, the payroll has gone up to for people's wages and rightfully so to meet inflation, but that also drives the work comp rates. So the positive, if you look to the right, you'll see Winona County's dividend. That was your dividend in 2024, that number there. So and that's a good thing. It shows that the money that was spent that we forecasted was left over and then divvied up and given back to you. One interesting thing I want to mention here, while it's good to see dividends and a lot of counties want to see high dividends, I know this is going to sound funny to say, but our goal is not necessarily to deliver high dividends. It's almost to deliver a zero dividend. And what do I mean by that? It means we forecasted upfront the right amount to charge you cost for insurance. We forecasted the claims correctly, so we almost ended up with a net zero. But much rather have, it's kind of like the same philosophy with a tax return. It's like, oh, I really want a tax return. But that also might mean you just paid in more all year long that you didn't have to. It's kind of the same rationale. But with that said, again, we're happy to deliver dividends because that means there's money left over, of course. So if you look at the bottom part here, cyber used to be a small part of our portfolio. It's now a massive part of our offering, our portfolio. And it's mainly because cyber is here to stay. It's only getting more complicated. So we are bolstering that area because we have to meet where we're seeing the risks and the hazards out there. Counties are being hacked. Counties are being targeted. So it's important for us to make sure we're on top of that and have that for you. Interesting enough, if you look at 2023, we received $1.7 million worth of cyber claims. And we thought, wow, is this the new norm? And then in 2024, it was 567,000, a good drop. And we know why that dropped. And it's because counties from 2023 to 2024 ramped up their training, ramped up their IT prohibitive, preventative measures. They ramped up your county employee training, not to click on malicious links, not to open. That's how they're mainly still getting in, actually. So we saw a large effort in that area, and it dropped claims by $1 million. So with that said, it's still relatively new. We're, obviously have to keep monitoring it and see, what is the trend, what is the norm, and hopefully, obviously it goes down and not up. But so that was good. That was great to see. If you look at the last page, this talks upper left-hand corner mainly focuses on the your portfolio of workers' compensation insurance. So we have your work comp for your employees for the county. This premium gets calculated for starters with a actuarial formula, mathematical formula, and it gives you what's called a mod rate. And the mod rate is essentially will give you a county your size with like hazards, and it'll make a mod rate of 1.0. So if you have a mod rate of a 1.0, that's your average comparable to a county your size with your hazards. Your mod rate, as you can see, is a 0.681. I don't know if I've seen one lower. So I'll just say that's awesome.
Yeah, don't jinx us.
Yeah, exactly. No kidding. So really what that means is you're 32% better than average. I've seen mod rates as high as 2.0. What that would mean is they're 100% worse than average. They're double that of an average county. So again, and your mod rate does take in to consideration your last 5 years. And so you do have a 2021 year that's going to drop. And so if you have a good year in 2025, like we always hope you do, for your sake and your employee's sake, there's an opportunity for it to even go lower. So, but I can put in this pitch later, but just a reminder, again, I do risk management consulting. We do have a loss control consultant from MCIT that comes out and helps. Alethea Sheridan is your loss control. They perform on-site safety, help reduce work comp claims, accidents and injuries in the workplace, OSHA compliance. So they're here to help you as well, and to help with any of this area for work comp or employee safety related. If you take a look to the right there, it takes a look, not just Winona County, but it looks at all of MCIT's claims and who are the sort of the heavy hitters, we'll call them, the most frequent claims, and then the cost ratio for the highest claim, dollar per claim. And it's not a secret that sheriffs and jails would be at the top, mainly because they're a 24/7 department and they have interface with a lot of unique risks. So, and same thing with your highway department, really, can be a 24/7 operation with unique risks. And so that's what we see in the MCIT pool overall. Does Winona have a county-run medical facility or nursing home? Nope, sounds good. So if you did, they're the third highest on the list, and then it falls off dramatically from there. But if I had to guess, I would guess for Winona County, your departments that you incur the most work comp costs are sheriff's, jail, and highway. And it goes with what we see. And so, like I said, going back to making a concerted effort, maybe developing safety plans, safety goals would be nice, and because we always want to see them go home safely after their shift in one of these departments. So if you take a look then, if property and liability, that also gives you a line of coverage and claims per year and cost per claim. Autos is continuously number one, and that's really a numbers thing. MCIT, we cover 35,000 autos, and so there's just with 35,000 units of anything, you have a greater calculation of them being in an accident. So they're the most accident cause and per claim. So if you take a look, just moving through the bottom, midway in the bottom, we want to make sure we continue to bring you advice, resources, programs. We're bolstering our website. We really want our website to be a true good source of information for folks to, you can always call me. But if we want to make sure, if you go on the website, you can find ideas on how to get information you're looking for, trainings, resources, on HR topics, safety, risk management topics, things that pertain to your county that you'd be interested in. So just a couple of the programs and services I want to highlight that you have access to. Typically, when you have an employee assistance program, it generally comes from a group's medical coverage, medical benefits coverage. Well, here with MCIT, we have it baked into our offerings as well. So as part of being an MCIT member, you do have access to employee assistance. The overall state average utilization there is 3.75%. And in 2023, it was 2% for Winona County and 4% in 2024. And that's neither good or bad. It just shows that, let's say 4% of your population did utilize the EAP. And to me, that's a good thing. Because it's there to be utilized, it's important. If somebody feels a need to utilize EAP, by all means use it, because it's remarkable the gains that are gathered from the consultants that are delivering to employees and their families in this area. And the successes are awesome. Someday it'd be nice to share those stories because it's a great thing. So again, anything you can do to actually help promote that. Some employees don't even know from other counties that I've ran into. So maybe work to promote, we can help you with that. Another good offering, your sheriff's department does participate in patrol. Patrol is set up for the sheriff's department strictly for law enforcement information and trainings designed for them and given to them to utilize and to help them in their everyday activities. So again, they've seen a lot of successes and your participation is greatly encouraged there. And I know a lot of sheriffs really do enjoy it and get a lot out of it. So we're happy to have that be part of the offering there too. So again, we had actually a decent year in 2024 if it wasn't for inflation. I'm hoping for a good year again in 2025. And if any of you have an idea on how to bring down inflation, I'd appreciate it. But one way we can help with costs is claims. So we just always ask for vigilance and helping in the area of claims. But, if we can do that and bring down inflation, I'd be happy for the 2026 renewals when they get here. So with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Dwayne.
So first of all, thank you for coming down to Winona County.
No, I appreciate it.
It's great to have this presentation. I also want to thank Commissioner Ward for serving on the MCIT board. That's a big and important job. I want to also thank all the staff for lowering, am I saying it correctly, the mod factor?
Yes, it's awesome. It really is.
And do we know why it had, because it's starting in 2021 to today, it's every year it dropped. Do we know why it dropped? Because is it
Yeah.
Commissioner Ward serving on the?
It's a 3-year rolling thing, and we had a very expensive claim in 1 year.
Gotcha.
It affected several years after that.
Okay, so we know why it's going down. Okay, so
Yeah.
whatever we're doing, do more of that.
Yeah.
But-
It's that new jail and all the new safety features built into it, which
It's a factor.
it is a factor because we do see a lot of claims with jails.
Sure, yeah, it's challenging, exactly, and that's totally not unique. But whatever you're doing well, because even small claims can add up to a lot if you get nicked a lot, and you're not. So you're not experiencing a lot of employee accidents and injuries, and that also leads to hopefully. On the other side of the coin, an increase in employee satisfaction with their job, with coming to work every day. So congratulations, and like you said, knock on wood. I mean,
I do have to say the one thing, and we've changed, at the board, we've changed it a little bit, the workplace injury hotline.
yeah,
If somebody say they slip and fall and they wonder, should they be going to emergency or what should they do? They can call and they get a nurse practitioner that will say, well, how you explain it, go home and, ice and then wait and see. But I don't know if if we promote that enough, and I'm looking at Ms. Holte, if all the employees are quizzed or given that information, I think they should be, and you're nodding they are. But that does help considerably instead of having higher, medical claims.
It does. Some people think, every time I put in a work comp claim, but I don't go to the doctor, does that count against us? It does not. So what you're explaining on the front end is if you, if for that nurse practitioner may say, hopefully, take 2 Tylenol and sleep on it, that'd be great, or whatever.
Yeah.
But it only impacts the employees if they like, I really need to go in and get treated. Then that has an adverse effect on your work comp rates. But just, but simply filing the claim doesn't. It's only if you have to be treated or if you're off work, of course, and receiving compensation. So.
And that the employee assistance program too, a lot of people don't realize that family members are eligible.
You're right.
If they're struggling
Good
with
point.
something, and again, we upped that. It used to be 3 sessions. I think now you can get 6 sessions. It's
Yep.
both family members. You can do if you got problems with finances, they got financial people, or if it's emotional, mental health
Yeah.
things.
Great
You
point.
can talk to some, and they're very, most counselors, it takes days to get in. These people are very quick to get you hooked up with somebody.
Yeah.
Stuff. So a lot of good things, but it's
Yeah.
coming with a higher and higher price tag, unfortunately, because
Yeah.
of reinsurance and inflation, as
Yeah.
Jim said. All right, any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
Enjoy your drive back.
I will.
Catch-
Thanks.
Catch
Appreciate
some
it.
daylight hours.
Thank you.
Watch out. We have a lot of deer in southeast Minnesota. We don't want to claim. No claims. Thank you. All right, moving on. 9.3, approve updates to the fee schedule. And I think most of those they were redlined, which was
Mhm.
appreciated. I think most of it was the cannabis things, and I think just 1 or 2 other ones I saw there.
Just one other one.
Yeah, wasn't it something about recordings or information, international processing and handling?
Yeah, 2.
Okay, all right. Is there any discussion or questions?
Motion to approve item 9.3.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Elzine, seconded by Commissioner Vagley to approve the updated fee schedules. Any other discussion? And I think I've always said this, if we see something problematic throughout the year, we can amend and change it as needs to be. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. All right, 9.4, discuss approve resolution to increase 2025 expense budget. And that's page 151. And
Madam
Mr.
Chair,
Elliott.
Commissioners, I'm Chuck Elliott. I'm here to present this particular RFPA to you. So I'll kind of start out by saying I think this is a new step in our budgeting process. It's something that I've done previously with the city of Minneapolis, and it's just intended to change the following year budget for projects or spend that was in previous budgets that didn't get finished for one reason or another. And I, spent quite a bit of time reviewing what this was needed for. And as you can see, the list is pretty small and limited to some big dollar items. So obviously, if a department forgot to order an office chair and wanted to roll forward $200, it's not happening. This is really only for things where orders have already been placed for equipment. And, for instance, like say the highway department, some of these things are really roll forwards from problems that probably stemmed and started in 2021, 2022. And I'll kind of walk you through the things that are on this list and just sort of explain why each one of them is on here. And I will say that the offset to the spend is going to be fund balance reserve is what's going to cover this. It's not going to change the levy or anything else like that. It's just unreserved, undesignated fund balance in some cases. In other cases, it's fund balance that's reserved specifically for a particular thing. And I'll touch on that as I move through the list. And so this is on page 152, I believe, in the packet.
Yes.
So starting at the top, the first line is in the capital projects fund, 330,000 for plow trucks. And this is one that I had mentioned for These are from orders that were placed in previous years, 2024, for instance, and really just sort of working through the shortages that popped up going back 2 or 3 years. And, speaking with Mr. Kramer, some of it is related to, well, we got the chassis, but we didn't get the plow, or vice versa. And so a lot of these are things that are just coming in now.
But we budgeted them for that year.
Yeah.
So then did that amount show as, went back into reserves then if it didn't get
Yes.
spent that year?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not really totally new money.
No.
Other than maybe inflationary costs and things like that. Commissioner Elsie.
So this keeps us on target though with our plow truck a year scenario.
It does.
To stay ahead, correct?
It does.
This is a catch up to that? Is that what I understand? Basically, it's some unforeseen expenses to get there or?
Ordered, but we couldn't get them, I think is
Is
what
it-
that
It
year
was
was.
a vendor issue.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this keeps us on schedule.
Yes. The next one, various park projects, and also this is in the '01 fund, the revenue fund. And again, these are things that are already in place or, projects that are already up and running but were unspent from prior year. Some of these are funded by grants in that area. So, we've already received the money or we're going to get reimbursed from it at some point. And then just to finish those up. The next one is the feedlot program, and yep, Ross is still here. So if I start, if I'm on the ropes, I'll just turn around and have him finish the question. But in the feedlot program, the state pays for a good chunk of it. And if we're not keeping up with our side of the agreement, if you will, in terms of how much money we spend and people we have supporting the program, then we end up having to give the money back. So, yep, I got a nod. So that pretty much explains it. So this is a carryover for money that we did not spend in 2024 that we intend to spend in 2025.
Again, a question on that. So is it designated, we just spending money to spend money, or is it designated towards a boots on the ground project? I mean, I'm just kind of, because this number could be bigger next year or something.
The Pollution Control Agency funds the feedlot program.
Yeah.
And what happened is due to staff vacancies and an increase in state funding for this current 2-year period, with 2025 being in the end. We run a pretty lean program, but we receive the money in advance. So we choose to either fully utilize the money with potential purchasing of equipment, or at the end of 2025, we do have to return that to the state.
That's what I was wondering. What are we doing with the money? Are we purchasing something or is
Um,
projects?
We're working on those right now, coming up with scenarios, and they will be brought back to the board before we do anything.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm just curious what it's going towards.
And the next one is the probation program within the Department of Corrections, also in the '01 general fund. This is mainly related to timing, where we get the bills from the state of Minnesota. But the billing cycle is a little weird. So in some cases, we'll get an invoice, a big one, in this case, $362,000 that we paid in 2025 for 2024 expenses. So if you look at the 2024 budget, we underspent. And now we're paying the bill in 2025. So if we don't increase the budget in 2025, it'll look like we overspent 2025. So it's really a timing issue.
Did we not foresee that coming?
Well, we did. We did everything we could to get the bill.
But
Called
we
them,
had
bugged
like
them,
a
and-
rough idea, didn't we? I
We
mean,
did. We knew what it was, and we knew how much it was going to be, but my best efforts were not enough to kind of get the invoice in December.
Was that for the full year?
No,
No, only partial.
yes.
But we couldn't have like put a forecast budget into our approved budget to say, hey, we anticipate a 360, even if it was $300,000 bill. So so we don't have the surprise. Is that, you see where I'm going with that? Yeah.
There, because we do cash basis accounting around here, that you don't really accrue for things. So, in full accrual accounting, I would accrue the expense in '24. and paid it in 25.
Policy, if we don't get the bill within 30 days of services delivered, we don't pay.
There we go.
Well, I
That's
just,
the policy we
yeah.
need to have.
I was just saying, under the pretense of, hey, because what happens is we get a budget, we see what the budget is, we don't know that, that's 1.5 points on the levy, you know, and then we say, oh, we gotta make that up somewhere, and we're making decisions like setting $750,000 aside and different things like that, not realizing 50% of that, you know what I mean, could come in on another bill. So I realize the cash basis, accrual basis, we do something similar also, but we still know that, hey, we got expenses coming up, we can't go buy X amount of new vehicles because we got this big bill coming. It just really helped us to understand some bigger things like this, I think.
Yeah, and if we were you know, at the time, I mean, we based I wasn't here when we set the budget for 24, but I mean, we set it for 25, assuming that we're going to get billed for all these things on a timely basis. And
But that wasn't in there, correct?
no,
Right.
I did not add, you know, a half a years of 24 to the budget. No.
Yeah.
Being optimistic, I thought I was going to get it. They, you know, all the indications we got were that it would come in.
I'm just trying to avoid the big surprise.
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. The next one was a surprise, well, to a point. It was not in the budget in 2025 at all. It's the Tyler Technology Software, the infamous software that we just talked about with the property tax calculations, and the recorder uses it, and I believe the assessor uses it, and but it cuts across a lot of these over-the-counter things that we have here. And there's a subscription, what they call a SaaS, over-the-counter subscription that you pay every year for the privilege of using their software. And that was not in the budget for 2025. So we got the invoice, we just paid it. But it's big enough that if, you know, we don't put it into the budget, it's going to look pretty bad at the end of the year, like we blew the budget. Either way, we have to pay it. We're just adjusting the budget to match.
Blow the contract, not knowing that we had to pay this $117,000 for a
Right.
product that I'm hearing is not working. I'm not real happy. I mean, I think somewhere along the line, they advertised Tyler Works, and I don't think Tyler's working. I mean, I don't know all the details, but I think it was a main contributor to the problem with the Lewiston School District. So did we not know that do we have this ongoing 17,000 a year? for
Yep,
Tyler?
it's every year. And I went back to them and I said, you're charging a subscription for software that we haven't implemented yet, so will you reduce the invoice? And they agreed to do it. So they knocked 14,000 off the invoice. So actually what we're going to pay is about 103.
Okay, all right, well, thank you for doing that, because, well, but if it's not working and it's not what we anticipated, I appreciate that. All right, thank you.
And then the next 5, 1, 2, yep, is all related to the sheriff's department and one-time public safety aid that we got in December of 2023. It was about 800,000. And about 600 and some thousand of it we put into the 2024 budget capital. And they managed to spend probably 60% of it in 2024. But what you're looking at here is the residue from what they did not spend in 2024. And this stuff is, you know, has strings attached. In other words, this funding can only be used for public safety, law enforcement type activities. So what,
Some of these vehicles, wasn't there supposed to be some major, was this the true cost, or this just what the grants covered? Because I thought they were doing some pretty aggressive fundraising for some of these trucks and transport vehicles.
what I do know, and I'm not deeply knowledgeable on this, like the armor radio system, the 149, that's already been paid. And I think they're finished now with that program, if you will. The equipment for the dive,
Sorry, Chuck, armor is never finished. It's ongoing. Every year you're gonna have to buy new equipment, new
True,
radios.
true.
So.
because
you
it
have to-
wears out, it breaks,
yeah, you have
yes.
To change that,
The terminology,
never
yes.
finished.
You're
It's
right.
always, yeah, evolving. But the other vehicles and things like that, I thought, weren't they doing some major, but you don't know if that was the cost of something or just the portion of the grant that we allocated to.
Well, if you look at the equipment for the SOAR truck, so they bought the truck last year and there was 30,000 in the budget for that, and it ended up being 38. And they had private fundraising to cover the difference.
Okay, all right,
The rest of this, I'm not too sure about.
okay, all right. But it was one time and Yeah, back in 2023.
Yes.
All right.
So that covers it.
So you're taking 1,111,750 out of reserves to cover these things in
Yes.
the 2025 budget.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions, Commissioner Bagley?
I'll move to approve the resolution.
I will second that.
Okay, we
Madam
have a
Chair?
motion and seconded, Commissioner Bagley, Commissioner Meyer, yes?
Thank you.
Commissioner Meyer?
Mr. Elliott, I want to thank you for your attention to detail and for bringing all of this forward. I mean, I know you got grilled, right? But in past years, this stuff would happen and we would never hear about it. So I'm grateful to your attention to all this sort of stuff and trying to be more transparent.
Thanks.
One thing I would like, so to know then what the balance of these reserve accounts are. If you took $1.1 million out of it, what is it after you do that? Just as a tracking.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I feel like we're saved in some part because probably $500,000 of it is really, maybe it's more like 350,000 of it is that one-time money that, for public safety, so.
Right, but reserves are very critical to our.
Yeah, but that couldn't be
finances.
spent for anything else anyway, so.
Okay, all right, so we have a motion to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I oppose nay. Okay,
Thank
thank you, Mr. Elliott. Appreciate that. Okay, 9.5, review approved draft cannabis business registration ordinance on page 155. And I think we need more red ribbons or whatever in the printers.
Would it be easier if I went up there?
I think that'd be
Yes,
good.
please.
Either way is fine.
Before we get started, did we hear back from any of the townships? I mean, they were pretty alarmed by some things a couple weeks ago, but I really looks like Eric maybe.
Yeah, if I can just update that real
Yes,
quick. I
please.
put one more push out there for everybody that we didn't get responses back. And we did get a delegation back to the county from the city of Minnehaska. That was the last city.
Okay.
And then there was 3 outstanding townships, Dresbach, New Hartford, and Pleasant Hill. We heard informally Dresbach will be delegating to the county. We heard also that New Hartford did. Pleasant Hill is the only holdout where we're not getting any response. So we have heard pretty much from our constituents across the board, so.
Okay, good, because they were concerned and we told them if they wanted to take action, they needed to let us know. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. It's been another relatively quiet.
Yeah.
Before I start, I just wanted to acknowledge, I think County Attorney Simon, who couldn't be here tonight, wanted to introduce you to Brian Thomas, who is one of our interns over at the County Attorney's Office. He did some work on this back in February to help us try to sort it out, and he's I'm a big fan of competent people doing public service, and he fits that category in the job that he does now as an intern, and helps do some of the behind the scenes work that allows us attorneys to be more productive. So
How
just,
long do we have his capabilities and his time?
right?
Few more weeks.
Yeah.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
and maybe if you indulge me, one example, right now, one of the things that I do is when a harassment restraining order is issued by a judge, I look at those to determine whether the person is prohibited from carrying a gun and would have their gun permit revoked, suspended. And it's kind of complicated because they actually get disqualified under federal law, and then it intersects with state law, but it's an intersection of that combined with the exact language in the order and the history of the people involved. And so those take time because you sort of have to go through them starting from scratch each one. And one of the things I've wanted to do for a long time is come up with a systematic approach of fact patterns and ways I could review these more quickly so that these could be processed more quickly. I could be more responsive to the sheriff and these things would be dealt with. So what he was able to do was go through and
pull all the forms that are used in a harassment restraining order proceeding and lay out the flow procedure of how that goes and at what point certain things happen so that we know if due process was provided or not. And all that kind of like background work that I don't have time to do to keep up with my regular workload. And so something like that really helps me in the future to be more productive in what I do and more responsive. And so people like Brian are really important.
Well, he doesn't have to answer the phones, you do. so
Yes.
yeah, Uninterrupted. Thank you, though. Sounds like good work.
Do my traditional dropping something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this was, last time we had this before, at the last meeting, you asked for a red line version of, from the model ordinance. And so what you have here today, the ordinance, the model ordinance actually fits into 3 different areas of our ordinance. So it's not all, you can't just do a comparison in a red line because you have to pull different parts of our ordinance. But so what you have before you is the model ordinance with the red lines of substantive changes that we made to the proposed ordinance. And I could go through and explain quickly the changes and why for you, or if you have specific questions, whatever you prefer.
Prefer. I guess my question, staff, I'm looking at Eric because you're kind of Mr. Cannabis.
Doesn't get it.
Does
Gotta
it
get you
meet-
a name tag.
Yeah, does it meet your expectations? I need some resident advisor. Yeah, Mr. Cannabis.
Expectations on just what will happen?
Yeah, I mean, is this workable? I mean. you-
Oh, yeah,
you
very
do
much
all the
so.
zoning and planning and you have the most experience,
Yeah.
departmentalized and worked with this stuff.
It just depends on the volume and the number and the locations. We've gone through one trial run with a cannabis proposal that predates registration and the state issuing licenses.
That was Dresbar.
Yep,
Yeah.
each one brings a set of dynamic concerns and issues of the neighborhood, how many we get, where they're located. If they're located within city limits, maybe they'll take some of the burden off of the unincorporated parts. But we're kind of working with the rest of the smaller cities too. I think that's gonna be a factor. I guess the best way to answer that is we don't know.
But time will tell and
Mhm.
we can modify and change as the state
Yeah.
modifies and changes.
Those were my concerns. I mean, hearing from the townships, hearing from the small municipalities, do you feel we have a sound enough but potentially fluid enough scenario here that we can start? How do we know what we don't know? I say that almost on a daily basis. And I feel like that's where we're at. So I'm really turning to you to say, do you feel this is sound to get started?
Yeah, I think we got the base bones, and I mean, we incorporated most of the template, the state minimum requirements, and Steve has done a wonderful job going through that. The numbers with these densities, I think that's why staff went along with that 5, and we're not sure exactly how those numbers are. One exercise I did was look at all the demographics, just to see how that falls, and depends on how you interpret that. That could be 1 or 2, or, depending on where they are, we're settling on 5. But I think we set it low enough that if we are overrun with applications, it'll be enough for our decision makers to pause
Yeah.
and to whether or not we, need to revisit some of the regulations we have.
Good. Commissioner Vagley.
Question to both Eric and to Steve. Do you feel like we're now ready to pass this? And to Commissioner Elsing's point, we're in a good enough place where it's a solid starting point, but yet there's room to monitor and adjust, to be flexible.
I think so too. Our partners in this are law enforcement, the sheriff's office, the auditor treasurer, whether or not, the volume is going to be The number that we get is gonna be the telling tale.
Okay.
Do you-
Any other
I mean,
questions?
Legal?
Well, two things in particular, I guess I'll point out is the language about limiting the number of cannabis retail businesses in the county. And that is set up in the way we discussed last time, which is it's limited to no fewer than one for every 12,500 people as required by the statute. And if we reach that limit and there are not five in the rural areas, the areas that the county has jurisdiction over, the county can issue 5 additional registrations. Up to five, yes. And not required to do that, and as long as we meet the minimum. And then the other thing that we added that isn't in the model ordinance is if someone gets a registration, is awarded a registration and doesn't act on it. Yeah, and so basically what this is on page 169 of your agenda packet.
60 or 70.
Yeah. So, and again, trying to be as flexible as possible because it's hard to predict how this will play out, but what they need to renew annually their registration every year. So if they haven't opened for retail business by their 1-year renewal, the county could ask them to show that they have a plan and a timeline for getting open, and the board could vote to rescind their registration if they aren't able to show that. So giving the board some flexibility. Also bringing them before the board temporary event permits for approval. And also the final step for someone being registered is to come before the board and have it approved before Chelsea issues that registration.
So that brings the question with the Dresbach. When did I mean, not much has happened at that location. Are they still with it? But they're just a conditional use permit of the lower or,
Well, for now, I mean,
yeah. So I mean, have they met the year? Are we approaching the year?
no, that was actually 2023
Okay,
that they
I-
received the conditional use permit, but they were unaware of their license status.
Yeah.
And there's been no registration initiated, so
So
a
we don't
lot,
have to
I'll
worry
wait to
about-
see.
Yeah,
you know.
the year there. Okay. Okay.
And then,
Commissioner Bagley.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
oh, and then one, as far as the one issue that's out there with limiting the number of registration is the townships and whether they're able to prevent a retail cannabis business from being in their township. And the way it works is that if they've not delegated their registration to us, to the county, they are required to register at least one if someone goes to register. But if the county reaches its limit overall of 1 for 12,500 people, they don't have to register anyone. Now, I don't know how the timing of that works. It's a little bit of a conflict because we have an obligation to register a certain amount of people and they have an obligation to act in a certain amount of time under the statute. So it's one of those unknowns that it may not know exactly how that works out, and ideally it won't be an issue. But wanted to bring that to your attention.
Commissioner Elson.
So just to be clear, thank you for that. Answers another question I have. So, but I just want to make sure I have this clear. Currently, if the county designates that to, or excuse me, if the township designates it to the county, unless the township says specifically, we don't want it, hey, as long as the 5 are filled, they don't need to do it. Now, if a township has its own planning and zoning or its own authority, such as Wilson, or if anybody else decides to do that, then they would have to meet they would have to meet their requirements to say yes or no. And that cannot supersede what the county says. Let's say if we don't have our 5, they would be forced to do it regardless.
Right.
They would come to us and we would say, no, we're sorry, you have to allow it. Is that the
So-
procedural aspect of that?
So, and the big answer to your question is the townships are put in an awkward position about
Yeah,
this.
that's why I'm
because-
stumbling here a little bit, trying to figure out.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
they have, if they don't delegate and they do their own registrations, they could control it and they could limit it, but they have the requirement to do one if someone applies. But if one through for 12,500 people is throughout the whole county, including the city and cities and all that,
Is there a township that has 12,500 people in it?
well, it's a minimum. So if you have one person, it has to be one. Oh, yeah, and we do have Eric did put together the population numbers.
If we take all the townships, all cumulative, it's 11,095 people. That's all the townships. That's counting Wilson and Homer and Rolling Stone, all the biggest ones.
So no incorporated areas. That's just.
That's just townships. If we take all the cities, that's 38,576. The 2020 US Census data for the entire county, that's all the townships, all the cities, is 49,671. So,
And there is that issue too of having it to be, and Ross provided me some very good information about commercially zoned property. There's very little of that scattered around the county. I mean, it has to be in a
Yes.
commercially zoned,
That's a huge factor.
yeah.
Yeah.
Ross did a real good job about picking all those up for me.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the hope or the expectation is it won't be an issue because of that.
Right.
And I know there are differences of viewpoint on how this works. But I did check today just to confirm that the Office of Cannabis Management's guidance is that if a city or township has delegated registration authority to the county, can the city or township still enforce its own registration or caps? And the answer is only the local government unit that issues a cannabis retailer registration can do that.
That's
So
the
they
county.
can, and they could do zoning if they're doing zoning, but they can't zone it to limit the number.
Commissioner Vagle.
If the legal staff and if the planning staff feel like we're now at a place where we can do this, I'll make a motion to approve. Are we ready to do this? The draft, to approve the current cannabis registration ordinance.
Okay. Motion made by Commissioner Vagle. Do we have a-
Second.
Commissioner Olson. Okay, motion made by Commissioner Vagle, second by Commissioner Olson to approve the draft cannabis business registration ordinance. And you better put a big April 22, 2025 on the document so we know that
Right.
when it needs to be changed.
Yeah.
We're all working off the same one.
Yeah, and I know I've said this before, but I really encourage the board to revisit this ordinance
Absolutely.
after, once this gets going, to make sure it's meeting the needs of the county.
Okay, all right.
I mean, whenever Eric or whoever feels like if it's 6 months from now or 9 months from now or a year from now, you tell us when you feel like we should come back to
Yeah.
it. Absolutely.
There's a process to get on our board agenda. It's,
Yeah.
And there is a provision in there that's not in the model ordinance that I forgot about too, which is just that the county will periodically review the impact on the health, safety, and welfare of the community. The county board will. No required timeline to do that, but just that will be done periodically to assess whether changes are needed.
you better check Governor Walz's schedule, see if he is available on that date when we do that. Please. All right. All those in favor of passing the ordinance, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Okay, approved. All right, thank you for all the work
your
on that. I regret that we having to do that type of thing.
So the vote was 5-0, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, 9.6, discuss, ask staff for recommendations lobbying efforts regarding health and human services. And that was on page 174. I mean, I think we get emails every day and news articles about what the state legislature and the federal government is doing with funding and such. So I'm not sure if we want to tie it to funding sources or what the intent would be.
That's really my goal with this, is to better understand what is being funded through grants from the federal government, what is being funded from grants from the state. And so that we are in a informed position, and potentially can lobby both our state and federal delegation as to what the consequences to the county and the county's budget and the community will be based on cuts. I see in the MICA legislative update, and this is relative to the state, not to the federal government, but that Otter Tail County and Carver County are both saying double-digit levy increases as a result of the cost transfers for the primarily it's disability services, but also the sex offender program and
Well, and we had to do a, Ms. Holte, did AMC and Micah were both trying to get a county-specific document and you had to fill out some type of survey.
Yep.
Do we know where?
We don't have an answer from them yet.
And yet I
The
haven't seen-
results haven't come out.
Yeah, okay. So as soon as we get that, that's the tool that I know both those organizations were working on to try and get.
so
get,
and
And Emily, you indicated some funding already that you knew of has been cut. Okay.
yep, we lost our AmeriCorps person for emergency management as well.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't know what other, do you want anything other specific? I think that AMC Micah survey will be very telling. Ms. Holte, do you need any more direction than that?
No, I believe we understand what is being asked.
Your- Your crystal ball is as clear as mine, very foggy and very cloudy and
Very much,
murky.
but we'll do our best to
Okay.
collect what we can.
And
Commissioner
I'm
Vega.
guessing
Appreciate
that
that.
off the MCI, I'm sorry, off the MICA document, they probably have counties that have more staff. They're able to probably crunch those numbers. Where
Yes.
we need to wait to have somebody else
Yeah.
help us with that. So
That would be true of Carver Tail, but Otter Tail probably didn't.
Well, they've got more staff. Yeah, they do. But
And I know Dakota County already said, you know,
yeah,
Love it.
they're analyzing and we all do the same thing, only on different level,
Yep.
different levels.
Exactly.
We can,
and
Okay.
they also testified. That note was from them testifying, correct?
right. Okay, we got the orders on that. So let's see, it was 8.9, now 9.7. Was reject bids for Apple Blossom Park Pavilion Project and decline Minnesota DNR Outdoor Recreation Grant OR 24-009. Commissioner Vagley, you asked to
I
pull
think that takes us down to page, is that 94?
98. I got,
no, 94. Well,
Finish tomorrow.
you're absolutely.
okay, well, we did it, at a committee, we indicated to take this action. What's changed?
Can I start off?
Yeah, go ahead. Commissioner.
And Ross, would you mind coming to the podium? I'm gonna talk for a little while and then ask you a question. So what we have before us on page 98, I'm sorry, I was wrong, you are correct, it was 98. So the recommendation is to do two things, is to reject the bids and to decline the DNR recreation grant. The first question I have is, do we have to do both? Can we reject the bids, but still, for now, not decline the DNR outdoor recreation grant? And there's a reason why I'm gonna explain in a second.
Yes, we could.
Okay, the reason is because the city of La Crescent, correct me if I'm wrong, the city of La Crescent actually, even though I think 2 or 3 of you mentioned the city of La Crescent, you
Many
know,
years ago, they were, the driving force of that whole
yep,
park.
and they reached out to, correct me if I'm wrong, us, Winona County,
To Lou Oberhog.
to Lou Overhog, and then Marine became involved. And these conversations haven't really gone anywhere. It's just like, can we meet to discuss this idea? Is that correct?
We're researching the potential opportunity because we don't know the legalities of that yet.
Because what the city of La
Of that
Crescent
grant.
asked was, the city of La Crescent asked what the possibility of many options, but, I mean, we could discuss many options, but they asked a specific question about, could the city of La Crescent annex that park and then make it part of theirs, et cetera? And the question is that even allowable? Because that's not township, that's not a township piece of property, correct?
Yes, it is.
It's Strasback Township,
Yeah,
But
Strasback.
it's a
It's
county,
owned by the county.
correct.
right, sorry. So yeah, that's what I'm asking, is I don't want to speak on behalf of Dresbach. But so the reason what I would like to do, if the board is okay with it, is we can reject the two bids. Their deadline was April 24th to do that.
Correct.
But to maybe table the action on declining the DNR grant, to wait to see these other conversations play out with the city of La Crescent, because those conversations are just beginning. And I don't even know, I'm guessing you can't transfer from a county to you for sure. No?
I verified that with the DNR. They did get back to me today.
So you couldn't transfer.
It's not transferable. They are not an applicant, so it's not an option.
Could we do something with that grant though, or is it only tied to the two bids? Could we take care of part of the project and the city could take care of the rest?
With the grant, no, we're tied to what we represented to the DNR.
Bless.
Bless you.
Thank you.
So there's no flexibility and no reason to wait on double checking, triple checking?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, in the original email that Mr. Obahug did receive, the city specifically stated that if the county board looked favorably on it, they would apply again themselves in the future. They were not specific. They never made any representation about trying to assume the current grant.
With all that said and done, I have been asked in an email, if I was a private citizen that owned that property, with it being in the Bluffland protection area and everything, could I build on it?
We pulled the 1995 original DNR grant that was used to purchase the property, and I have that with Mr. Kranz right now. There is language in there because state bond money was used to finance the purchase. We need an opinion to, what I'm reading is we would have to reimburse the state if we wanted to sell it. Now, transferring it to the,
If I owned it and I wanted to build a house, with our protective bluff land and everything, could I build a house there? I mean, you wanted to build pavilions. Could I build a house on that property?
But I think I know where you're going. I asked that question of a La Crescent City Council member. I said, I think it's very important that we know that it won't be turned into a housing subdivision.
No, the person that asked me is, do we make special rules for ourselves? We don't follow the zoning ordinance like anybody else would?
Pavilion.
Well,
Okay,
that's the
when-
question.
when
I think
we,
the question is if it's good for the goose, it gotta be good for the gander. If the idea is unsightly things, then is this an unsightly thing? No different than a house, the barn, whatever it might be, that we're not following our own rules. That if our rule is, if the idea is that we can see the corner of a roof line 2 months out of the year, whether it's that person's, our person's, collectively all persons, if the idea is to protect the bluff, why are we out? I got the same email, I'm sure everybody did, and that does point, and again, it's almost hypocritical to not at least look at it and say, yeah, I mean, if this is the case, if that's what we're going by, and that's the rules we put on other people, we should be putting them on all people, because even though it's for all, the rule is for all people. So it does justify a point, and I do get that, and I want to acknowledge that publicly.
when we did receive the grant, I did discuss that with Lou and Eric, and their agreement was that it did not, but maybe Eric could address that.
Well, we're not building
No, we're
today,
not,
so
yeah.
again, I
Right.
guess.
I think it's more of a moral, like a moral thing, this is a moral situation, like, hey, this has been denied to multiple other people, we've watched neighbors have to fight, we've done this, we've done that, and now here we are saying, hey, let's put up a pavilion that for the whole world to see. Good for the goose, good for the gander.
Which is why I did inquire, because we were going to go through the process if that was the case.
Commissioner Bagley.
So I'm gonna make I'll try to limit how much I say, is that I am very interested. I'm concerned that if we don't continue some kind of work, this is gonna fall by the wayside and this won't ever happen. And you build parks not for you build it for your great grandkids and kids you'll never meet. And parks are always built in stages. No one ever starts off with Yosemite or Yellowstone. You build it in stages. So I was kind of viewing this as the first stage. It also honors the life and work of George Howe. And I'm afraid that if we let this go, it will it'll just fall by the wayside. But it sounds like we have no option with the DNR grant, and the city of La Crescent could apply, and you're sure about that?
I had reached our grant coordinator this morning and was able to have a conversation, and she said, yeah, absolutely not.
Because it is hard, one last thing, it's just hard to possibly agree to rejecting bids for park work on Earth Day. I mean, literally today is Earth Day, so the timing of this is a little bit ironic, et cetera. But as long as the conversations can continue, and those can continue, correct? Okay.
You keep bringing up George Howe, and I remember George and everything, tragedy and everything. Did he leave any legacy money to continue his great work?
He had raised, I don't know how much money he helped raise.
But I mean, there wasn't any trust or anything
no,
for the
no,
park or anything
no.
that we could tap
Not that I
into?
know of, no.
Okay, Commissioner Meyer.
Thanks. I do have a couple questions. So if we don't reject the grant, when does it have to be spent by?
June 30th, 2026.
We would have a full year to make some other choice if we don't do it. And we said as a part of what we talked about when we talked about this at the committee board, that we would spend the ARPA money because it's already been committed. So if we chose to reject the bids, but not reject the
Decline.
grant, send the grant back, do we still want to spend the ARPA funds?
I think it's important that we still spend the ARPA funds.
So
There is some maintenance that goes on, so can that be dedicated?
I think they said they do whatever they could.
That's what we were looking at. We did meet with Laura Pedersen to make sure that we understood what it could and couldn't be spent on. At this point, it can't be reallocated to anywhere else. So it is limited to work at Apple Blossom Drive.
But it could be maintenance work,
Yeah.
ongoing maintenance work.
And so how long did it take us to ask for and get the bids? Because that was a 6-month process.
The original deliverable for the design documents was supposed to be the end of July, and we didn't receive them till the end of February 2025.
A year.
We were after them all the time, so.
And I don't fault the staff at all, but this has been before the Parks and the Rec Committee for 2 years, Ross,
Long
3
time.
years.
And actually,
It's-
I will say, just let me wrap up. I will say this. I don't think it's a bad idea to potentially allow La Crescent to take it over, because I think they'd probably be willing to invest more money in it than we have been. And I appreciate that. It's right there. It's a beautiful park, and they would use it. They would use it for their festivals and their events. So in some ways, I feel like they would be in better hands maybe than it's been in the hands of Winona County. So I thought perhaps you were saying we should sell it and build a development, and then I was like, no, I'd rather see it stay
Probably
as a
get
park.
top dollar for it, because a few new houses went on up across the road. I guess I'm unaware of La Crescent's activity or anything, so there's a lot of going on here that I have no idea what they're proposing or thinking and stuff. So,
And the request is whether we've been interested in beginning discussions. So we wanted to first understand the legalities, then bring that forward to you. If there's an interest in us engaging in those discussions, we would then start engaging in those discussions. And then again, bring that back and
so we would be
just-
canceling all the funding here now, though. We would reject the bids and decline it.
I mean,
in our-
that's, when at the last committee of the board meeting,
That's the direction.
I did bring you a couple of options. If you want us to try to redesign something, there's time we could, otherwise we
You said no once. Why is everybody trying to get us to change our mind? I mean,
New information, the city of La Crescent.
well, we still could reject and
Right.
decline and do those
Wait,
conversations.
Just wait. How long did the conversations take?
the grant itself limits us with what we can change. Now, if we want to let the grant go and still use the county contribution and the ARPA money, then we could look at doing something different. But to utilize the state funding, I kind of gave you we can reduce the size of the pavilion. We cannot pave the parking lot. Beyond that, we're not meeting our deliverable under the terms that we applied for.
we discussed all that, reducing the size. the fact that it took so long to get bids back is just a sign that somebody just doesn't want to do it. You know, if you're looking for work, you're gonna get it back. I mean, let's just read between the lines here. The fact that the bids came back for the amount that they came back for, which were quite elevated, especially one of them, is another sign of that. Three, we've got an issue here with, I think we got a moral issue. The building something on a bluff for everybody to see, that when we passed ordinances that say you can't build anything on the bluff for everybody to see. So I think we got a couple issues, even if we were to get the city involved for, you know, for, La Crescent, we would still have some issues here discussing the moral impact of do as they say, not as we do, situation. So there's a lot of factors here, I think, that are being brought up, that I go back to the original situation of right now, I just don't think this is the right time to do this.
I think mine.
So
Okay. Commissioner Bagley, how long did you want to table it for?
the outdoor recreation grant, you said we have until June of 2026.
Correct.
We're not, it's not urgent. And I realize the chances are very slim or none that we could use it for anything else. But
The engineering firm did recontact us yesterday. They said that the contractor thought we could potentially save some money if we changed the roof structure that we had designed it one way, but and then in the same email, it's like, well, there would be some additional engineering costs to make sure that it was viable. So it was not consistent with the direction we received. So we just need direction. It's to meet the terms of the grant, we are fairly limited.
I'll make a motion, and we'll see where it goes. I'll make a motion there'll be a three-part motion, to reject the bids for Apple Blossom Park, to table the request to decline the DNR grant, let's say 6 months. I'm gonna revisit it. And the third part is, were you saying, Ross, that you want, or Maureen, do you want us to wait until you come? Can we say that, yes, we would like you to have these conversations with the city of La Crescent? We don't know where it's gonna go.
You can say that, and we can go that
If
direction.
you would like that,
Right, we just need to gather,
more information.
right, what can or can we not do before we even have a conversation?
But do you have the capacity to do that at this time? Or do we need to put this off? I mean, you're going into budgeting in a very precarious time of funding. I mean, seriously, do you have time to sit down and chit chat with the city of La Crescent right now? And you can be honest, I don't think you do.
Doesn't have time for.
I think it would be a low priority. I would hope it would be a low priority. I mean, in the workload that
I
you
have
would.
many fish to fry.
I know. And so I mean, I just trying to put something more like this. Again, parks aren't bad, but again, life is all about timing. I think we got higher priorities right now. So, but that's your motion.
Three-part motion,
Okay.
to reject the bids, to table the DNR grant for 6 months, and to give the staff, I guess, permission, direction to continue conversations as they see fit under the timeline that they think is most reasonable.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a three-part motion. I'm not going to try and repeat it. But
Reject bid,
yeah,
table.
reject bid, table the DNR and
Let's
talk
talk.
with the city of La Crescent.
Yep.
Okay, everybody clear on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Nay. Okay, 3-2. I would like to see the city of La Crescent's letters because I don't know what they're proposing at all.
Well, there hasn't been anything proposed.
No, there's
Oh.
nothing started yet.
Oh, okay. I thought they said there was a letter or something.
No.
Had something.
Just an email inquiry.
All right, moving on. Commissioner
Thank you,
Bagley, you
Russ.
had a couple comments and
Yep, 2 quick comments. I want to express my condolences for the passing of the Pope, the leader of the world's largest religion, 1.3, 1.4 billion people. He was a person who was a champion for the poor, for the marginalized, for refugees and immigrants. So I want to express my condolences to the Pope and all members of the Catholic faith. I also want to wish everyone a happy Earth Day, April 22nd, not an official holiday, but a good day to remind us of some very important things in our beautiful Winona County. That's it.
Commissioner Elsing.
Can you jump over me for a second?
Okay, all right. Okay, let's see, I had a couple things. we've been talking dollars and cents and everything. I want people to understand Winona County could also face double-digit property tax hikes in 2026. Just let alone right now, there's a figure, and you can't believe these figures. The governor potentially increase our cost share, by a minimum of 8%, just in what he's proposing currently. But then again, it's the governor's budget, and the House and the Senate haven't come up with theirs. But there's additional costs for essential services. But unfortunately, the county has no authority to influence the program criteria, eligibility, or the cost structures. And that's the issue I have. If they're going to make us pay, we should have some say in, and it's not going to be easy, but they don't want to make the decision, so they're passing it down to us. So with the additional rising baseline expenses, but in just our everyday operations, our union contracts, our heating bills, our gas, electricity, everything. But these proposed cost shifts are going to result in huge financial strain to local taxpayers. The city of, the Lewiston School District got a shock with us miscalculating. All citizens in Winona County should be prepared for a shock for next year. We all got our statements. First half's due in May, so get ready. But Minnesota operates under, a lot of people don't realize Minnesota operates under a supervised county model for human services, but they're primarily federal and state dollars, and they're shifting these costs to us because we administered it. We're one of the handful of states that do this, and it's going to be very problematic. So I just want people, I think we need to keep telling that message. Unfortunately, it's not a good message, but it is the message we need to tell people. And we're not in, and we're not in control of our own fate. We're not in control of our own fate for the biggest part of it. So, and then as far as a board action, we've heard it from a couple people now. This public records process, and I know Attorney Krantz is working on it. I think we should have a discussion about our public data request process, so we understand it and our citizens understand it. So I need a second to move that.
That's actually what I was gonna bring
Oh,
up, but
okay.
I was typing up an email for a constituent answered quick, so
Oh,
I wanted
okay.
to bring the same thing up. Just having that conversation about that and seeing if there's something we can have a clear and more transparent answer, so
Yeah.
people aren't in the dark when they're requesting this type of information. And my thought process is we have more software, we have more streamlining. We just saw we pay $117,000. Our county hasn't grown. There's no more people, nothing's changed. So what's going on and why can't we make those things happen? So we should be more efficient than ever, I would think. So yeah, I would definitely second that.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Anything else, Commissioner Olson?
Yeah.
Oh, no, that was the one thing I wanted to bring up. So,
Right. Okay. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
so moved.
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Elsing. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We're adjourned. Thank you.
I'll do the other way around, if that's okay.
Oh, Jeff Goldberg's.